I stood there staring at the glowing menu board, and for a split second I didn't see food. I saw a cage. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic, rhythmic thumping that matched the flickering neon sign of the drive-thru sign. My credit card felt heavy, burning a hole through my pocket, and my brain felt like it had been scraped thin by a dull razor. $5 here, $3 there, just a little extra, just a small upgrade. It seemed so harmless, so insignificant, until I looked at the history on my phone. The red lines, the overdraft fees, the realization that I'd been feeding a monster that didn't care if I was hungry, only if I was compliant. I wasn't just buying lunch, I was paying for my own surrender, one perfectly salted fry at a time. I had been bleeding slowly for years, and I didn't even hear the wound opening because the cashier smiled so kindly when they asked if I wanted to make it a meal. It started so innocently. You know how it is. You finish a long shift, your feet are throbbing, your head is foggy from staring at screens all day, and you just want a moment of peace. You walk into that bright, clean space, the air smelling of grease and artificial happiness. You think you're in control. You think you're just there to fix the hunger. But the system, and it is a system, a cold, calculated masterpiece of human engineering, knows you better than you know yourself. They don't want your money in big, noticeable chunks that would make you pause. They want the microtransactions. They want the small, lazy decisions that don't trigger the logical centers of your brain, and I was their best customer. I used to think I was savvy. I used to think that grabbing the combo was a victory, a way to save a few cents and get more for my time. I felt smart. I felt like I was winning the game. But every time I said yes to that four-word question, I wasn't saving anything. I was opting into a pre-programmed life. I was letting someone else dictate my priorities, my health, and my future wealth, all while convinced I was making my own choices. I was tired, and they fed on that exhaustion. They made it so easy to say yes that saying no felt like a monumental struggle against the current. Then the weight of it all came crashing down on me, not all at once, but in a series of sharp, stinging realizations. I remember the night the balance hit zero. I was sitting at my kitchen table, staring at a stack of bills that seemed to be mocking me. I reached for my card to pay for something essential, not a luxury, not an upgrade, something I actually needed, and the machine spat it back out. Declined. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. My throat tightened. I felt this cold, creeping panic rise up from my stomach, cold and metallic. I started scrolling through the transactions, looking for the culprit, expecting some giant, singular mistake I'd made, but it wasn't there. There was no single disaster. There was just this endless, repetitive stream of small purchases. $5, $6, $4. It was a massacre of 1,000 cuts. I was hemorrhaging my life's potential for things I didn't even remember eating, things that hadn't provided a single drop of real value. I was gasping for air, clutching my phone as if it were a life raft, but it was the very thing that had been drilling holes in my boat. I felt sick. I felt foolish. I felt like the most manipulated person on the planet. I was working 60 hours a week, and I was giving it all back to the very corporations that had designed the trap I was currently dying in. I sat there in the dark for a long time, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator. The silence was heavy, suffocating. I realized that my life had been a series of automatic reflexes. I wasn't living, I was just reacting. Every time I stepped through those doors, every time I opened my wallet, I was fulfilling someone else's quarterly projections. I was a gear in a machine I didn't even own. I looked at the wall, at the shadows dancing in the corner, and I saw my own reflection in the window, haggard, worn, and desperate. I started to wonder, how deep does this go? Is it just the fries? Or is my entire personality, my entire ambition just a set of responses triggered by someone else's code? I thought about all the things I wanted, to be free, to provide, to build something that mattered, and I realized I had been trading those dreams for the convenience of not having to think for 3 seconds. It was a horrifying, paralyzing thought. I wasn't a person, I was a statistic. I was data being harvested by the billions. And the worst part? I had enjoyed it. I had convinced myself that it was the price of comfort. I was tired, so deeply, bone-achingly tired of the fight, that I had handed over my armor and walked straight into the fire. But then, something shifted. It wasn't a sudden explosion of motivation. It was a cold, hard clarity. I started to see the strings. I started to see the patterns. I realized that the only way to beat a system built on your own lack of awareness is to become hyper-aware. I developed a rule, a simple, stubborn, immovable rule. I call it the 3-second shield. Now, whenever I'm in a transaction, whenever I feel that familiar scripted pressure to add, to upgrade, to bundle, I stop. I count to 3. 1, 2, 3. In those 3 seconds, the entire psychological house of cards collapses. The cashier, the kiosk, the algorithm, they all rely on the momentum of your compliance. By stopping, I break the cycle. I reclaim the decision-making process. I force my brain to wake up. I don't look at the combo as a deal anymore. I look at it as a distraction. I don't see the add-on as an elevation of my experience. I see it as a theft of my future. I stopped being a participant in their game and started building my own. I started auditing everything, not just the food, but the subscriptions, the services, the convenient choices that were slowly bleeding my bank account dry. I stopped caring about looking polite. I stopped caring about the social friction of saying no. I started valuing my own money more than I valued the comfort of the person behind the counter. And you know what happened? The sky didn't fall. The world didn't end. I just started keeping more of my own life. You might be thinking that it's just a few dollars, that it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but that's exactly what they want you to believe. That is the lie that keeps the engine running. Every dollar you keep is a vote for your own autonomy. Every dollar you spend on their psychological triggers is a vote for your own servitude. You are young and you have time, but time is only useful if you have the resources to use it. Don't let them turn your future into a pile of salty, discarded scraps. Stand up for yourself. The next time you're standing at that counter, when the question comes, and it will come, it's a script, it's a law, don't answer immediately. Take your 3 seconds, breathe, feel the power of that silence. That silence is where your freedom lives. It's not about the fries, it's about who owns your brain. It's about who is writing your story. You have the power to break the pattern, but you have to be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit difficult, and a little bit more deliberate. You are worth more than a frictionless transaction. You are the architect of your own life, so start acting like it, and don't let a billion-dollar company decide what your hard-earned money is worth. If you're ready to stop being a part of the matrix and start building your own, I've laid out the entire blueprint in the next video, the one that covers exactly how I stripped the debt away once I stopped buying into the lies. Click it, watch it, and let's get you out of that cage for good, because you deserve to live a life that you actually own, not one that was sold to you in a combo meal.